And this can be and the purpose behind why you meet, to where, yeah, some of these groups can develop into something that's not really anything biblical anymore. Whereas you start with a purpose, but if you lose sight of that, you become the, game night. The old movies about having poker night, all the men get together, poker night. I mean, that's potential of what you could develop, but the world offers that. And that's not what we're necessarily after for the church. Now, is it wrong to play video games and to have board game meetups in your group? Absolutely not. In fact, we encourage that as a part when we've got, especially on the younger side, who love playing certain games and stuff like that. That's fun. It's an icebreaker. It spends a little time. But if that's all you do is play games together, then you're wasting your time. Remember, we're talking about groups that we believe that you can grow in knowledge of God and grow in relationship with others. And so you might do that, but where's God in that? Another one that you would see is Bible study group stays on topic for entire meeting. Let's face it. How many times have you been in a Bible study that gets hijacked? Hijacked by somebody going off on some wild tangent, and there's no way to get back in there. Now, part of that needs to be that the leaders that we have of these groups know how to bring it back, and the people who are in the study know how to bring it back. Because occasionally there might be somebody who will come in who will try to hijack the conversation. And so you've got to have tact, and you've got to have the ability to stay on course. Make sure they don't get hijacked. Make sure that the reason we came to study the Bible, right? We're here to build relationship. That's part of that. But we can't spend all of our time talking about, blank. You know what those topics are because you've been in those groups before where you left and you said, we didn't talk about anything. How many times? I've been in studies before where we left and my wife and I have looked at each other and said, what just happened? We set aside the hour to go, right? And now this was a Sunday school class too. This was like Sunday morning, so it wasn't like, whatever. And so, and you're looking, and there is that part where you have to come and say, look, I'm the attendee, I'm not the teacher, I'm not here to run your class, but there should be some aspect say, hey, let's get back, that verse, let's get back into it, And so some people say, one of the reasons I don't like going to groups is because, we never stay on task. We actually never study the Bible. And that can be a common thing, and it shouldn't happen. We should find ways to stay on topic. Now, another common thing you'll see is people who actually just don't study the Bible. You'll have a group that's set up, and you're not really dealing with the Bible. You're picking a verse here and a verse here and all of that. And it's okay. It's Bible study light. And there's a place for some of that. Not every group has to be super deep, but I do think there needs to be a place for some harder truths to come out, not just the fluffy stuff. And so I think there's some real complaints that can be made about groups that don't go deep, or groups that aren't really teaching the Bible. And you can't fix all that, but you got to shoot for that. We got to train our people to want and to hunger for the Bible and not the fluff and not the And it's on our people to, hey, let's stay on. Let's keep moving with this. Remember, there's that balance still. How much is relational? Because that's what we want. We want you to grow in family, but how much do I need to try to keep my focus on the text? But you can never go wrong when you're just studying the Bible together. But you got to bring people in and learn together. Here, another one. And this was a one I've experienced so many times. Home Bible study leader asks if anyone else has any blatant heresy they'd like to share. Now, this kind of goes with the previous one that we talked about. But this happens a lot when a Bible study group gets together and then somebody says, well, is there anything else anybody would like to share? And if you're not careful, as the leader, you're not careful, this could go bad. Let me tell you, just as a good habit, I've talked about how to study the Bible in one of the previous videos. We've talked about studying the Bible and how to do that better. Here's just a good habit to have. Guys, the phrase, what I think this says to me, is, I'm going to hold back. It's terrible. Don't ever say that. You know why? Because it doesn't matter what you think it says to you. It doesn't matter what I feel it's saying to me. What does it actually say? And so when we go down the road of what do you feel about that? Don't do that, because that opens up for a whole world of garbage that can come out. And so, one of the things that we have to do is make sure that we as church leadership are looking at our leaders, and we're confident that our leaders aren't going to allow for garbage to come out of that. It's one of the things that we have a commitment. We have all of our church leaders now, we've asked them to sign to say, if I'm going to lead a group, these are the things I'm committing myself to, so we can make sure they're in check. We call it our church leadership covenant. And so that we can make sure that you are growing as a leader before we can ever let you try to help others grow as well. But it can be a problem, especially if we open that up, and especially as we don't know how to answer things, or we just say, here's what happens too, right? If you have someone who's confident and somebody just says something flat out crazy, and in an attempt to just keep things moving and not answer, you just kind of go, yeah, instead of saying, no, but we can either address that now or we can address it after we're done. But yeah, it can be hard sometimes. Let's talk about the reality, though, of small groups, right? So let's talk about that there's some really good stuff that comes out of it. So I want to show you an article that came a little while ago, came from Ed Stetzer, who's now over at Wheaton College, used to be Lifeway's head researcher. So this is not Babylon Bee. I'm just clarifying, not Babylon Bee. But this is what he says: 4 reasons small groups are vital to your church's health. So let's look at what are the 4 kind of reasons that small groups are vital to the life of the church. So here's a go. So here's the first 2 that he says. Personal discovery. So I'm clarifying what he says here. So growth groups will allow you to ask questions and share your life with those who are in the same group. One of the things they've noticed is this. He says spiritual growth happens better with others, in community, with open lines of communication and freedom to speak into one another's lives. I mean, I don't know if you're somebody but like me, but I am one of those people that as I talk, I tend to process better. Some of you guys are just like that, where the ability to just talk and to have that's something that's really important, to be able to just talk through it and to listen and ask questions, and then